The spotlight never felt heavier than the night America's greatest comedienne chose honesty over laughter and, for the first time, silenced an entire studio with the rawness of her truth. Carol Burnett, known for decades as the woman who made the nation laugh, delivered a performance so powerful and painfully real that critics called it the most unforgettable moment in television history. But what made it even more haunting is the fact that Burnett, who lived for her art, made a private promise never to watch that episode. Not once. Not ever. Why would a performer celebrated for her brilliance avoid her own greatest triumph? What pain was buried so deep inside the laughter that even she couldn't face it again? Long before Carol Burnett became a household name, she lived a life shadowed by absence and hardship. Born in 1933 in San Antonio, Texas, her earliest memories weren't of lullabies or warm hugs, but of silence. A silence so thick it swallowed joy. Her parents were both struggling with alcoholism, often lost in their own worlds, unable to give their daughter the simple love and safety she craved. Her father, working at a movie theater, brought in little money. Her mother, emotionally detached and burdened by unrealized dreams, barely acknowledged the little girl who quietly tiptoed through their broken home. Love was inconsistent. Comfort was rare. And yet, through it all, Carol learned how to survive. She became invisible when she needed to be. She stayed quiet to avoid trouble. At just 2 years old, she already understood that survival meant adapting quickly to disappointment. When her parents finally disappeared from her life completely, her mother leaving emotionally and her father physically, Carol was taken in by her grandmother, Mabel White. It was the beginning of a new chapter, though far from easy. They moved to Hollywood, not the glamorous kind, but a part of town where the streets were worn and dreams often crumbled. They lived in a run-down boarding house filled with people who had nowhere else to go. Money was so tight that stealing toilet paper from theater bathrooms became a necessity. It wasn't a joke. It was just life. Still, even in that poverty, Carol's imagination flourished. To cope, she created a fictional twin sister named Karen. Everything Carol wasn't. Karen was brave, stylish, happy. Carol would sneak up the fire escape, change her clothes, and come back as Karen. It was silly, maybe even strange, but it was her escape. Even the adults around her started playing along. This wasn't just a child's game. It was a lifeline. It was the beginning of her talent, the first spark of the actress she would become. The movie theater became another kind of escape. Every Saturday, Carol and her grandmother would spend nearly all they had to sit in the dark and watch the magic of film. It was here she first heard the iconic Tarzan yell, and something about that sound struck her. She practiced it endlessly, not knowing that this silly obsession was actually shaping her voice, her breath control, and her timing. Tools that would define her career in comedy. By age 7, she had already made one of the most important discoveries of her life. Laughter could protect you. It could turn a horrible moment into something bearable. It could give you power, even when the world tried to take everything away. Laughter became her armor. As high school ended, she dreamed of becoming a journalist, inspired by the same mother who had always remained emotionally out of reach. But reality once again tried to get in the way. The tuition for UCLA was just $50, but she didn't have it. That tiny amount was enough to shut the door on her dream. Until a stranger changed everything. Someone she didn't know stepped forward, anonymously paid her tuition, and asked for nothing in return. Only that she one day helped someone else in need. It was a turning point. That one act of kindness would open doors Carol never expected. Though she started out studying journalism, fate had different plans. A single theater class shifted everything. On stage she felt seen. She could be loud, funny, bold, the opposite of the invisible girl she'd once been. She quickly stood out, even winning an award as the most promising freshman performer. But just as the dream was beginning, another stranger appeared. This time, a wealthy man at a party who offered her and her boyfriend each $1,000 to go chase their dreams in New York. Again, with no expectation of repayment. Just a promise to help others when the time came. New York was not kind at first. The money disappeared fast. The city was harsh, overwhelming. One day, Carol stood crying on a sidewalk, ready to give up, when she looked up and saw a sign. A hurricane named Carol was moving up the coast. That strange moment felt like a message, and she decided to keep going. She moved into the rehearsal club, a low-cost boarding house filled with hopeful young women. It was far from glamorous, but it was filled with people who still believed in dreams. That belief would soon pay off. Her big break came through comedy. Not with polished elegance, but with a quirky, silly love song about Secretary of State John Foster Dulles. It was ridiculous. It was brilliant. People loved it. And just like that, Carol Burnett began to rise. From the Jack Paar Show to the Ed Sullivan Show, her name began to carry weight. She didn't just perform, she connected. Her honesty, her timing, her vulnerability made her unforgettable. She was funny, yes. But she was also real. Within 5 years, she paid back the stranger who had helped her, keeping her promise. Then came the Carol Burnett Show. It wasn't just a hit. It was history. She became the first woman to host a primetime variety show. For over a decade, millions tuned in every week. Her cast, Harvey Korman, Vicki Lawrence, Tim Conway, became legends in their own right. They played with the unexpected. They left room for mistakes, which often became the best parts of the show. Laughter spilled out of studios and into homes across the country. One sketch about an elephant became so chaotic and funny that it practically defined live television's magic. But beyond the laughter, there was always depth. One of her most famous characters, Eunice Higgins, was funny but heartbreaking. She was the woman who never quite got what she wanted. She tried so hard, and life just kept letting her down. People laughed, but they also felt something deeper. It was comedy that carried pain inside it, and Carol understood that pain. Then came the episode that changed everything. In 1977, she performed a sketch that was nothing like anything she'd done before. It was called The Gong Show. And it didn't aim for laughs. Eunice walked onto a talent stage hoping for recognition, needing to be seen. But instead of applause, she was ridiculed. The judges mocked her, tore her apart. And when the camera cut back to Carol, she was weeping, deep, real, uncontrollable tears. The room went silent. This wasn't comedy. It was truth. Critics called it genius. A masterclass. A blending of comedy and drama unlike anything that had ever been on TV. But for Carol, it wasn't something she could celebrate. It felt too real. Too close. The tears weren't just acting. They came from a place inside her she didn't want to touch again. And so, she made a promise. She would never watch that episode. And to this day she never has. Behind the curtain of fame, her personal life carried more pain. Her daughter, Carrie, struggled with addiction. Just like Carol's parents. History repeating itself in the most painful way. Carol fought for her, loved her through the darkness, and just when things began to turn around, Carrie died from cancer at just 38. But Carol didn't let that be the end of the story. She helped finish Carrie's play, Hollywood Arms, making sure her daughter's voice was heard. Years later, when her youngest daughter Erin also faced addiction, Carol stepped in again. This time taking custody of her grandson, Dylan. She became the strong hand that held her family together. Again. Quietly, fiercely, without applause. Even now, in her 90s, Carol Burnett hasn't stopped. With roles in Better Call Saul and Palm Royale, she continues to show her brilliance to new generations. The laughter still lives in her, but so does the weight of a life that has seen more than most will ever know. That one episode, the one she refuses to watch, still exists. It's part of television history. A moment of pure, painful honesty that blurred the line between performance and reality. To the world, it was a masterpiece. To Carol Burnett, it was too close to the truth. Too much to face again. Carol's life reminds us that laughter doesn't erase pain. It sits beside it. That the strongest people are often those who've endured the most quietly. And that sometimes, the bravest thing an artist can do is show us what's real, even if they never look at it again. If you were moved by Carol Burnett's powerful story, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. There are so many more untold stories waiting to be shared. Stories of pain, courage, and the remarkable people who rise from it all.